We are going to start the project by creating the character and start with character movement. We want a folder, a new folder in our file system tab to store our scenes, the characters we are going to create, the code we are going to write. I recommend that we use a folder called source to represent the source code for that. So right click on res here. This is the root of your project. And new folder. Call the folder source. I'll abbreviate it to src. There we will store every GDScript file, but also the scenes we will create with Godot's interface, as these are parts of your game's source code. Now let's get started creating the character, the player. We want to create a 2D scene, but we will use a custom node to do that. So click on custom node on this button. And at first, you want to create a kinematic body 2D. Kinematic body 2D is a node that you can control, that can move around the world, and that can detect collisions, that can detect hitting a wall, the ground, those kinds of things. Let's rename it to player in this case. And a node like this needs a collision shape, a geometric shape, to detect collisions with the world. So we are going to add one. Select the player node, click the plus button at the top, and this time you want to look for collision shape 2D. So start by typing collision, and you will find it at the bottom of the list. Create one of these. There you want to add a geometric shape, a resource, to that node. To do so, we have to head to the right side in the inspector. Next to the shape, click the empty label, and you want to create a new rectangle shape 2D. Once you have it here created, you will see a small rectangle appear in the view. So you can use your mouse wheel to zoom onto it, and you can click and drag on the points to edit the shape. Note that to do so, you need your select tool, the select mode, to be active in the top left of the interface. To set the size of this rectangle, we are going to first place our player's sprite. So select the player node at the top. We are going to add the sprite as a child of it. We need it selected to do so. And click to expand assets. Go find the player.png file and drag and drop it on the view. It will automatically add it as what you select in there. We want a sprite. Click OK to add a sprite, and you will see it added as a child of the player node under the collision shape 2D. Now, the node that's at the bottom of the list will be in front of all the others. The rendering order, the layering of the nodes, is from top to bottom by default. So you can click and drag the player above the collision shape 2D to make it so we can see the rectangle in front of it. Then we want to place our player so that the two axes that cross here are at the bottom of the sprite. We will use them to represent the origin of the player. You can click and drag with, again, the select mode active to move your sprite. When you do that, by default, it's a bit imprecise because you can move your sprite very smoothly, but we want to precisely place our character on the origin. To do so, we need to use the snapping feature. So in the toolbar, you want to click the magnet to activate snapping, and then click the three dots to configure it. By default, we are snapping to the grid. You can toggle it on and off with the G key. As you can see, it will draw there. Then when you move your character, the center point here will snap to the grid. The thing is, it's not what we want just yet. We want to place the bottom of the character and align it with the origin of the scene. So click the three dot and deactivate snap to grid. We want to use pixel snap instead. Press G again to hide the grid, and then you can click and drag, and you will see that the character moves in small increments of 1 pixel at a time. And then you can place it so it really matches like aligns with that x-axis that we have here drawn in red. You want to take the collision shape 2D and move it so it is centered with the character. So move it up. You can press the shift key to constrain the movement to one axis and align it with the character's center. Then click and drag on one handle to expand it. You will see that it expands on both sides at the same time, right? It increases the extent of your rectangle, not just one side. And you want to do the same for the y-axis. Now the thing is, you don't want it to be all around your character. This represents the collision of the player, the part that will stop against walls. And in general, we cheat a bit. We want to make these a bit smaller than the game's sprite. So you don't have the character getting stuck if the part that's in the rounded angle of the character hits a wall or something. So we're going to make it a bit smaller than our character sprite. You can make it something like that. Finally, we want to add a script to our character just to get it started. This is the place where we're going to add two scripts to our project. One for the player, that is specific to the player, and one that will be shared between the enemy and the player. The enemy and the player will both move in the game, so they will have some similar code, logic, and we can add a parent script that they will both inherit or extend, and that will allow us to share some code between the two instead of repeating the code, writing it twice, once in the player script and once in the enemy script. Anyway, to get started, let us save the scene. So you press Ctrl S to do so. Go in the source folder, and we are going to create a folder, let's say actors or actor, where we will store all the actors in our game, the player and the enemy in this case. Click OK. You will end up in that actors folder and save your file as player.tscn. In the next video, we will set up the player scripts.